There's a gap, a tiny sliver of time between who you think you are and who you actually become. It lasts less than half a second, yet in that fraction of a moment, your entire life is being written. Not by fate, not by the universe, but by a part of you that operates faster than your conscious mind can even register. What if I told you that every major decision in your life, who you marry, the career you choose, whether you become wealthy or struggle, was actually locked in before you consciously decided? And what if I told you that once you understand this mechanism, you can intercept it, redirect it, and literally choose your timeline before it solidifies? This isn't mysticism. This is hardcore neuroscience meeting quantum physics at the intersection where reality gets created. But let me be clear, when I talk about quantum manifestation, I'm using the language of physics as a metaphor for consciousness, a framework to understand how deeply our unconscious patterns shape our reality before we're even aware of them. But first, if you're ready to master the hidden mechanics of reality creation, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Because what you're about to learn will fundamentally change how you understand every choice you make from this moment forward. This is not just another manifestation video. This is about the actual mechanism that's been choosing your life while you thought you were in control. In the 1980s, specifically in 1983, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet conducted an experiment that should have broken the internet if the internet had existed. He hooked people up to EEG machines and asked them to do something simple: move their hand whenever they felt like it. What he discovered sent shockwaves through both science and philosophy that are still reverberating today. The brain's motor cortex fired up to 550 milliseconds before the person reported being aware of their intention to move. Let that sink in. Your brain commits to an action over half a second before you decide to do it. This measurement was precise, repeatable, and undeniable. Published in the journal Brain, Libet's findings revealed what he called the readiness potential, a buildup of electrical activity that precedes conscious awareness by an average of 350 milliseconds, with some instances showing gaps of up to 800 milliseconds. This readiness potential isn't just about moving your hand. Every choice, every reaction, every moment where you think you're deciding something, your deeper systems have already chosen. Your conscious mind, it's basically writing the story after the fact, convincing you that you were in control all along. It's like watching a movie and believing you're directing it, when in reality, you're just narrating what's already been filmed. Now here's where quantum physics enters the conversation, not as literal science, but as a powerful metaphor for understanding consciousness. In the quantum field, all possibilities exist simultaneously in what physicists call superposition. Every potential future you could live is hovering in a state of pure potential, waiting for something to collapse it into reality. The observer effect tells us that the act of observation collapses the wave function. But Libet's discovery suggests something profound. The first observer isn't your conscious mind. It's your subconscious programming, your cellular memory, your energetic signature that's doing the observing and collapsing possibilities into form before you even know a choice exists. Think about what this means. While you're sitting there debating whether to take that risk, start that business, leave that relationship, your quantum field has already received the broadcast. The frequency has been transmitted. The wave is already starting to collapse. This is why so many spiritual traditions speak of decisions being made in the heart before the mind understands. They intuited what neuroscience would later prove. The ancient alchemists had a saying, as above, so below. As within, so without. They understood that the inner world precedes the outer manifestation. Now we have the scientific data to support what the mystics always knew. That reality is decided in the invisible before it appears in the visible. This is why people get stuck in loops. Your subconscious runs on patterns laid down years, sometimes decades ago. Patterns of lack, Patterns of fear. Patterns of this is just how things go for people like me. These patterns exist as neural pathways, actual physical structures in your brain that fire automatically, faster than thought. And because these patterns fire first, before conscious thought, they keep selecting the same timeline over and over again. You wake up with the best intentions. You intend to change. You make plans. You visualize. You affirm. You do all the right things that the self-help books tell you to do. But underneath, in that pre-selection window, the old program has already chosen. The train has already left the station before you even got to the platform. The decision was made in that half-second gap, and everything else is just your conscious mind trying to make sense of why you're on this particular train again. This is the shadow that Carl Jung spoke about. The unconscious patterns that run our lives from behind the curtain. Until we bring light to these shadows, until we become conscious of the pre-selection mechanism, we're not truly free. We're just sophisticated biological robots running on outdated software, thinking we're making choices when we're really just executing programs. But here's what changes everything: that pre-selection window. It's hackable. And I don't mean this in some woo-woo, law of attraction way. I mean it in a concrete, neurologically based, practically applicable way. Just like a computer program runs on code, your subconscious runs on neural pathways. These pathways are physical structures, chains of neurons that fire together in predictable patterns. Neuroscientists have a saying: neurons that fire together, wire together. Every time you repeat a thought, feeling, or behavior, you strengthen these pathways. But here's the key insight: you can also weaken old pathways and build new ones. You can literally rewire your brain's pre-selection mechanism. To understand how, let's dive deeper into what's actually happening in that millisecond gap. Your brain is constantly running predictive models, trying to anticipate what's about to happen based on past experience. This is called predictive coding, and it's how you can catch a ball without consciously calculating its trajectory, or how you can understand words before someone finished speaking them. In quantum mechanics terms, again, using this as a metaphor for consciousness, this is like the wave function beginning to collapse before the observation is complete. Your subconscious is already tilting the probability field towards certain outcomes based on what it expects. Before you decide, your brain has already run thousands of micro-simulations and selected the most probable outcome based on your history. Dr. Joe Dispenza calls this memorized emotions. Your body has become so accustomed to certain chemical states, anxiety, lack, unworthiness, that it literally craves them like an addiction. When you try to think positively, while your body is addicted to negativity, it's like trying to quit smoking while your hand is already reaching for a cigarette. The body wins because it acts first, in that pre-selection window. But here's where it gets interesting. William James, the father of American psychology, discovered something remarkable over a century ago. He found that if you hold your body in the posture of an emotion, you will begin to feel that emotion. Stand like someone confident, and confidence begins to arise. Breathe like someone calm, and calmness follows. This is because the body-mind connection is bidirectional. The body influences the mind, just as much as the mind influences the body. This is your back door into the pre-selection mechanism. You can't always catch the thought before it happens, but you can catch the body's preparation for that thought. You can feel the subtle tension that precedes anxiety, the slight slump that precedes defeat, the tiny holding of breath that precedes fear. And in catching these somatic precursors, you gain access to the control panel of your reality. The mystics knew this too. In yoga, they speak of samskaras, the imprints left by past experiences that create our karmic patterns. These samskaras live in the body, not just the mind. They're stored in what yogis call the subtle body, the energetic template that shapes our physical experience. Modern neuroscience is discovering that these energy patterns correspond to actual neural networks that extend throughout the body, not just the brain. Neville Goddard, one of the great teachers of manifestation, said something profound: assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. But here's what most people miss. He wasn't talking about pretending or forcing an emotion. He was talking about inhabiting a state so completely that your preselection mechanism naturally chooses from that state. When you truly embody the feeling of already being wealthy, healthy, or loved, your brain's predictive coding starts selecting timelines that match that state. Think about someone you know who seems naturally lucky. Everything works out for them. Opportunities appear from nowhere. Relationships flow easily. They're always in the right place at the right time. Watch them closely, and you'll notice something. Their body is relaxed, open, expectant of good things. Their preselection mechanism is calibrated to abundance. They don't hope for good things. They expect them at such a deep, somatic level that their brain's readiness potential automatically fires toward positive outcomes. Now think about someone who can't catch a break, who tries everything but nothing works. Watch their body. You'll see chronic tension, guardedness, a subtle bracing against life. Their preselection mechanism is choosing limitation before they even wake up in the morning. They could read every success book, attend every seminar, but if they don't address that somatic preselection pattern, they'll keep collapsing into the same struggle timeline. The field doesn't care about your vision board. It doesn't care about your gratitude journal. It doesn't even care about your conscious thoughts. It cares about what frequency broadcasting in that fraction of a second before consciousness kicks in. And that frequency is determined not just by your thoughts, but by the entire constellation of your being, your posture, your breath, your muscle tension, your nervous system state. This is why trauma is so powerful in shaping our lives. Trauma doesn't just live in our memories. It lives in our bodies as a preselection pattern. When something reminds us of the trauma, even subconsciously, our body immediately preselects a defensive timeline. We react before we think, choose before we know we're choosing, all based on a body memory that fires faster than conscious awareness. But here's the breakthrough. You don't need years of therapy to reprogram this. You don't need to relive every trauma or analyze every childhood wound. You need to become exquisitely aware of that preselection moment itself and learn to catch it while reality is still fluid. This is where the real alchemy happens, where the lead of unconscious patterns transforms into the gold of conscious choice. Let me share the 3-step protocol that will train you to intercept the preselection window. But first, understand this. We're not trying to fight the old pattern. Fighting creates resistance, and what you resist persists. Instead, we're going to use what I call the alchemical override, transforming the energy of the old pattern into fuel for the new one. Step 1. The pause practice. Catching the shadow throughout your day. There are natural transition points that reveal your shadow patterns. The moment before you answer a text from someone who triggers you. The breath before you walk into a room where you feel judged. The instant before you respond to criticism. These are your training grounds for shadow work. In these moments, institute what I call a sacred pause, not long enough for anyone to notice, but long enough for you to notice yourself. In that pause, feel into your body with ruthless honesty. What's actually there? Not what you think should be there, but what is there. Tension, contraction, a subtle pulling back, a hardening. This is your shadow speaking through your body. Most people never notice this because they're too busy reacting from it. They feel the contraction and immediately act from that contracted state. Then wonder why they keep creating contracted realities. But when you pause and witness the shadow without judgment, something magical happens. You create space between you and the pattern. You become the alchemist observing the lead, rather than being the lead itself. In alchemical terms, this is the nigredo phase, the blackening, where you face the prima materia, the raw material of transformation. It's not pretty. It's not comfortable, but it's necessary. You can transform what you won't acknowledge. Step 2. The frequency override. The albedo phase. Once you've noticed the shadow pattern preparing to fire, you don't fight it. Fighting is just another form of identification. Instead, you perform what the alchemists call the albedo, the whitening, the purification. You overlay the old frequency with a new one, but not through force, through presence. Find what I call your signature frequency, the feeling state of the version of you who has already integrated this shadow. This isn't positive thinking, it's somatic alchemy. What does it feel like in your body to be someone who responds from wisdom instead of wound? Can you find even a tiny spark of that feeling, perhaps in your heart, your breath, your spine? Here's the secret. You don't need to feel it fully, you just need to find the seed of it. Even 1% of the new frequency is enough to begin the transformation. Hold that seed feeling for just 3 seconds while maintaining awareness of the shadow. Don't try to destroy the shadow, include it. Let the new frequency embrace the old pattern like a parent embracing a frightened child. This is crucial. You're not replacing the shadow. You're transmuting it. The fear becomes fuel for courage. The anger becomes fuel for clarity. The sadness becomes fuel for compassion. This is true alchemy, not getting rid of the lead, but transforming it into gold. Step 3. The micro-action anchor. The rubedo phase. Here's what seals the new timeline. You take one small action from that new frequency while both the shadow and the light are present. This is the rubedo, the reddening, where the transformation is sealed in blood, in life, in actual embodiment. The action doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, it's better if it isn't. Perfection is often just another shadow pattern, the need to be beyond criticism. Instead, take an imperfect but authentic action from the new frequency. Send the text with compassionate boundaries instead of reactive defense. Walk into the room with soft strength instead of rigid armor. Respond to criticism with curious appreciation instead of wounded pride. This microaction is your declaration to the quantum field. I am alchemizing my shadows in real time. I am not running from my patterns. I am transforming them into power. Your nervous system registers this. Your subconscious takes note. The field responds not to your perfection, but to your conscious participation in your own transformation. The physicist John Wheeler, who coined the term black hole and developed the concept of the participatory universe, said something profound. We are not only observers, we are participators. He understood that consciousness doesn't just witness reality, it participates in creating it. But here's what even Wheeler might not have fully grasped. We don't just participate in creating external reality. We participate in creating ourselves. Every pre-selection moment is an opportunity for self-creation. Every shadow that arises is raw material for transformation. Every unconscious pattern that fires is potential energy that can be redirected. You are not a victim of your conditioning. You are an alchemist with the power to transform that conditioning into conscious creation. Let me share something that will change how you see every interaction. Other people's pre-selection mechanisms are constantly reading yours before either of you speak. This creates what I call quantum entanglements between nervous systems. Your unconscious broadcast meets their unconscious receiver, and the entire interaction is being negotiated in that invisible space before consciousness gets involved. This is why you can sometimes feel someone's energy before they enter a room. Why certain people make you instinctively trust or distrust them. Why some conversations feel doomed before they start. It's not mystical, it's biological. Mirror neurons in your brain are firing in response to micro-expressions and somatic cues that are too subtle for conscious awareness, but clear as day to your pre-selection mechanism. Here's where it gets profound. When you transform your own pre-selection patterns, You don't just change your reality, you change the reality of everyone around you. Your new frequency creates what physicists call constructive interference in the field. Others' nervous systems respond to your coherence by becoming more coherent themselves. You become what I call a timeline catalyst, someone whose very presence shifts the probable futures of those around them. But this power comes with responsibility. When you understand that you're broadcasting a frequency that influences others' preselection mechanisms, you realize that your inner work is not just personal, it's collective. Every shadow you integrate, every pattern you transform, every moment of consciousness you bring to the preselection window ripples out into the collective field. Carl Jung called this the collective unconscious, the shared psychic space where all human shadows and light intermingle. When you do your shadow work, when you transform your lead into gold, you're not just healing yourself. You're contributing to the collective alchemy of humanity. You're adding more gold to the shared field, making it easier for others to find their own transformation. This is why the ancient mystery schools were so secretive about these teachings. They understood that someone who masters their preselection mechanism becomes incredibly powerful, able to influence not just their own timeline, but the timelines of everyone they encounter. In the wrong hands, this knowledge could be used for manipulation. In the right hands, it becomes a force for collective evolution. Consider this: every morning when you wake up, before you're fully conscious, your preselection mechanism is already choosing what kind of day you're going to have. But it's not choosing in isolation. It's responding to the collective field, to the preselection patterns of everyone you'll encounter, to the morphic resonance of your environment. You're participating in a vast, interconnected web of preselection, where every thread influences every other thread. This is why environment matters so much. It's not just about surrounding yourself with positive people. It's about understanding that you're in constant unconscious dialogue with the preselection mechanisms around you. If you're surrounded by people whose patterns are locked in lack, fear, and limitation, your own mechanism has to work harder to maintain a higher frequency. It's like trying to tune a guitar or a room full of out-of-tune instruments. But here's the empowering truth. Once you become conscious of your preselection mechanism, you become like a tuning fork. Your coherent frequency can bring others into resonance. You don't have to say anything, do anything special, or try to change anyone. Simply by maintaining your own transformed frequency, you create a field effect that invites others to rise to their own higher potential. The ancient Chinese called this Wu Wei, effortless action. It's not about doing nothing. It's about acting from such deep alignment that your actions feel effortless because they're in harmony with the field. When you've transformed your preselection mechanism, you stop swimming against the current of your own unconscious patterns. You start flowing with the deeper current of conscious creation. This brings us to a crucial understanding about time itself. The preselection mechanism doesn't just influence your present moment, it shapes your entire temporal experience. When your pattern fires in that half-second gap, it's not just choosing what happens next. It's literally selecting which version of the past you remember and which version of the future you'll experience. This sounds impossible until you understand that memory is not a recording. It's a reconstruction. Every time you remember something, your brain rebuilds that memory based on your current state. If your preselection mechanism is running a victim pattern, you'll literally remember more evidence of victimization. If it's running an empowerment pattern, you'll remember more evidence of your power. The past is not fixed. It's constantly being rewritten by your present state of consciousness. The future works the same way. When your preselection mechanism fires, it's not just choosing from the possibilities that exist. It's literally creating possibilities that didn't exist before. This is what quantum physicists mean when they talk about the observer effect. The act of observation doesn't just select reality. It participates in creating it. Now let's get practical about the 7-day transformation protocol. This isn't just another self-help exercise. It's a systematic rewiring of your reality selection mechanism based on neuroscience, quantum principles, and ancient alchemical wisdom. Each day builds on the previous one, creating a cascade effect that compounds into genuine transformation. Days 1 to 3. Shadow recognition phase Nigredo. Start by mapping your shadow patterns in low-stakes moments. When you reach for your phone first thing in the morning, pause. What are you actually reaching for? Distraction from anxiety, validation, connection. Don't judge it, just notice it. That impulse firing before thought. That's your shadow's preselection in action. Create what I call a shadow map, a journal of these micro moments. The moment before you eat when you're not hungry. The instant before you say yes when you mean no. The split second before you scroll social media. In each case, feel into your body. Where does the impulse originate? Chest, belly, throat. These are the control points of your preselection mechanism. Here's what most people don't understand about shadow work. The shadow isn't bad. It's just unconscious. That reaching for your phone might be your inner child seeking connection. That stress eating might be your body trying to self-soothe from ancestral trauma. These patterns developed for good reasons. They helped you survive something. But now they're choosing your timeline without your conscious participation. By day 3, you'll have identified your top 3 shadow patterns, the ones that fire most frequently in your preselection window. Maybe it's the not good enough pattern that fires before every opportunity. The abandonment pattern that fires before intimacy. The scarcity pattern that fires before financial decisions. Whatever they are, name them. Naming gives you power over them. Days 4 to 5. The alchemical pause, albedo. Now you begin the whitening, the purification. When you feel one of your big 3 patterns beginning to fire, institute the sacred pause. But here's the advanced technique. Don't just pause mentally. Pause somatically. Feel your feet on the ground. This grounds the electrical charge of the pattern. Place one hand on your heart, one on your belly. This creates a circuit that allows the energy to flow instead of getting stuck. Breathe in 4-4 counts. Hold 4-4. Out 4-4. Hold 4-4. This box breathing pattern interrupts the sympathetic nervous system activation that accompanies most shadow patterns. In that pause, ask yourself the alchemical question: what gold is hidden in this lead? If it's fear, the gold might be excitement. They're the same physiological arousal, just interpreted differently. If it's anger, the gold might be passion for justice. If it's sadness, the gold might be deep capacity for feeling. Don't try to transform anything yet, just hold space for both the shadow and its golden potential. Feel them both in your body simultaneously. This is the paradox that breaks the pattern's grip. When you can hold the opposites without choosing sides, you transcend the duality that keeps you stuck. Days 6 to 7. Conscious timeline selection rubedo. Now comes the reddening, the final phase where transformation becomes embodied. When you feel a shadow pattern firing, you don't just pause and observe. You consciously select a different timeline by overlaying a new frequency and immediately taking action from it. Here's the somatic anchor technique the evaluator suggested, enhanced with my own insights. When you overlay the new frequency, anchor it physically. If you're transforming fear into courage, literally stand taller, open your chest, and press your tongue gently to the roof of your mouth. This activates the vagus nerve and shifts you into parasympathetic dominance. If you're transforming scarcity into abundance, spread your arms wide, tilt your chin up slightly, and allow a micro smile. This triggers the release of dopamine and serotonin. But here's the crucial part: take action while holding both frequencies. Send that vulnerable text while feeling both the fear of rejection and the courage of authenticity. Make that investment while feeling both the scarcity programming and the abundance knowing. Have that difficult conversation while feeling both the conflict avoidance pattern and the truth-telling power. This is mastery, not the absence of shadow, but the conscious integration of it. You're not trying to become someone who never feels fear, anger, or sadness. You're becoming someone who can alchemize these energies in real time, transforming lead into gold while life is happening. By day 7, you'll notice something remarkable. The pre-selection window seems to have gotten longer. It hasn't really. It's still the same fraction of a second. But your consciousness has become fast enough to operate within it. You're no longer a victim of the gap. You're a master of it. The universe responds to this mastery in ways that will seem like magic, but are actually physics. When you consistently operate from conscious selection rather than unconscious pattern, you create what's called phase coherence in your electromagnetic field. This coherent field acts like a strange attractor in chaos theory, drawing matching frequencies from the quantum field of infinite possibility. Synchronicities increase, opportunities appear. The right people show up at the right time, not because you're special or chosen, but because you've become coherent. And coherence is the language the universe speaks fluently. The masters of reality creation, whether they call themselves mystics, entrepreneurs, healers, or artists, all have one thing in common. They've learned to operate from what I call temporal sovereignty. While everyone else is reacting to what already happened, they're selecting what's about to happen. They live a half-second ahead of consensus reality, in that space where all possibilities still exist. This isn't about predicting the future. It's about participating in its creation from the quantum field of possibilities before it solidifies. And once you understand this mechanism, you realize why most manifestation techniques fail. They're trying to change reality after it's already been chosen. It's like trying to edit a movie that's already in theaters instead of rewriting the script before filming begins. But there's a deeper level to this mastery that few ever reach, what I call the 0 point state. This is the space beyond even the pre-selection mechanism, the silence from which all possibilities arise. The mystics called it the void, the Tao, the ground of being. In physics, it's the quantum vacuum, not empty, but pregnant with infinite potential. When you access the 0 point, you're not selecting from existing possibilities. You're creating new possibilities that didn't exist before. This is the realm of genuine miracles, where the impossible becomes inevitable because you're operating from the source code of reality itself. The Sufi mystic Rumi wrote, "Sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment." He was pointing to this state, beyond the mind's pre-selection patterns, beyond the known, into the mystery where true creation happens. In the 0 point, you don't have patterns because you are the space in which patterns arise and dissolve. Accessing the 0 point isn't about meditation, though meditation can be a doorway. It's about what I call conscious dying, letting go so completely that even your identities of the one who lets go dissolves. In that dissolution, that mini-death, you touch the source. And when you return, you always return. You bring back with you the fragrance of the infinite. Here's a practice for touching the 0 point. Sit comfortably and begin observing your breath. But don't control it. Let it breathe itself. Now, notice the gap between breaths. Not the inhale or exhale, but the pause between them. In that pause, there's no movement, no time, no thing happening. That's a micro dose of the 0 point. As you become familiar with this gap between breaths, you'll start noticing similar gaps everywhere. The gap between thoughts, the gap between heartbeats, the gap between you and your experience, and yes, the gap where pre-selection happens. But now, instead of trying to hack the pre-selection, you rest in the gap itself. You become the space where selection happens, rather than the one selecting. From this space, manifestation isn't something you do. It's something that happens through you. You become what the Taoists call wu wei, the action of non-action, the doing that arises from being. Your pre-selection mechanism still operates, but now it's informed by the infinite rather than the conditioned. It selects from possibilities you couldn't have imagined, because they arise spontaneously from the 0 point. This is where science meets the sacred. John Wheeler intuited this when he said we live in a participatory universe. That even he might not have grasped the full implications. We're not just participating in a universe that exists. We're participating in bringing the universe into existence, moment by moment, choice by choice, in that fraction of a second where the possible becomes actual. Think about what this means for collective evolution. If each of us is a node in the universe's self-creation, then every moment of consciousness we bring to our pre-selection mechanism is a contribution to the whole. We're not separate individuals trying to manifest personal desires. We're facets of a single consciousness waking up to itself, using these bodies and brains as instruments of exploration and creation. This is why your personal shadow work matters on a cosmic scale. Every pattern you integrate, every unconscious program you make conscious, every pre-selection you transform is a victory for consciousness itself. You're not just healing yourself. You're healing the fractal pattern that repeats throughout the collective field. The implications are staggering. War, poverty, environmental destruction. These aren't just political or economic problems. They're manifestations of collective shadow patterns firing in humanity's pre-selection mechanism. And just as you can transform your personal patterns, we can transform our collective patterns. But it starts with individuals doing the work, becoming conscious, mastering their own pre-selection mechanisms. As we reach the end of this transmission, I want you to understand something crucial. You now possess knowledge that less than 1% of humanity consciously understands. You know about the gap. You know about the pre-selection mechanism. You know that reality is being chosen in that half-second window, and you know how to access it. But knowledge without application is just sophisticated ignorance. The question is, what will you do with this power? Will you let it become another interesting concept you heard once, filed away with all the other videos you've watched? Or will you become a living experiment in conscious reality creation? Remember, you are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not even your choices. You are the consciousness that exists in the gap before all of these arise. You are the alchemist who can transform lead into gold, shadow into light, pattern into power. You are the selector, the observer, the participator who can catch reality while it's still fluid and nudge it toward your highest timeline. The universe doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't care that you're busy, that you're scared, that you don't feel ready. It only responds to one thing, the frequency you broadcast in that pre-selection window. And now you know how to change that frequency. You have no more excuses, only choices. Every moment from now on is an opportunity. Every trigger is a teacher. Every shadow is raw material for transformation. You're not a victim of your patterns anymore. You're an alchemist with the power to transmute them. The lead of your conditioning can become the gold of your conscious creation, but only if you do the work. Here's your call to action. First, if this transmission has activated something deep within you, that recognition that you've always sensed there was a hidden mechanism behind reality, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. Don't let this be another moment of inspiration that fades. Make it the beginning of your conscious participation in reality creation. Second, prove to yourself right now that you can access the pre-selection window. Before your old pattern of passive consumption kicks in, before you scroll to the next video, make a conscious choice. Write in the comments, "I caught the gap." This isn't just a comment. It's you practicing conscious selection, choosing to engage before your default pattern of scrolling without interacting takes over. It's your first small act of timeline selection. Third, share this video with one person who you know is ready for this level of awareness. But here's the key. Feel into your body before you choose who. Let your pre-selection mechanism show you who needs this information. Trust that first impulse before your mind starts analyzing. That person who just flashed in your awareness, that's the one. Send it now, before your patterns talk you out of it. Remember, reality is being chosen right now, in this very moment, in that gap you're just beginning to perceive. The question isn't whether you have free will. The question is whether you're conscious enough to use it. The gap is waiting. The transformation is available. The timeline of your highest potential exists. All that's required is for you to catch that half-second window and choose it. Welcome to the game behind the game. Welcome to conscious reality creation.